Welcome to the Rockabye Revenue Podcast with me, Abby Watson. I'm a mum of 4 and a business strategist, and I train people to become hypnobirthing teachers. In the last decade, I've built a thriving baby business that grew beyond my wildest dreams. This podcast is for you if you run a business or dream of running a business in the birth and baby industry. You want to change lives whilst making more money. I'm talking about creating sustainable income whilst being present for the people that matter most. I believe for our baby businesses to have the impact we desire, we must be rewarded. On this podcast, expect me to share actionable strategies without the jargon. I've been where you are. I've built a business while raising 4 little ones, and now I'm here to help you turn your passion into profit while creating the life you've always dreamed of. So let's get started. Hello, lovely one. How are you doing today? I hope you're having a good day so far. Now, I'm here to talk about something that I know impacts many of us doing this wonderful work that we do. You know, a big kind of like side effect of being so passionate about our work is that sometimes we can have real heartache from it. And maybe things that are not in our control almost feel like they put our fire, our passion fire out a little. In my experience as a hypnobirthing teacher, as someone that absolutely believes that women's voices should be heard, that women can have incredible birth experiences, it is absolutely painful when I hear about the terribly poor care that some women experience in maternity. And there have been times along my journey where hearing about that and hearing about what families that I work with are up against can make me feel like, why do I even bother? Is there any point to what I do with the system being so shocking? Now, I know this isn't necessarily unique to being a hypnobirthing teacher. I know this will also apply to those of you listening that work with clients postnatally. You know, perhaps you massively believe that new mothers should be nurtured, should be cared for, and actually in reality that is not what you see. You perhaps believe that women's feeding decisions should be respected, yet you see in culture that that is not the case. And there may be times when you think, oh my gosh, what is the point in what I offer? And I want to share a couple of times that has felt so the case for me. The first time, well, it probably wasn't the first time. I've definitely experienced this in smaller doses throughout my 10 years in this industry. But one time that really stands out to me is 2020. 2020, when the country, well, the world went into lockdown. Why did this make me feel like I don't want to be doing this work anymore? Well, it was because I was hearing everywhere of the awful experiences women were having in terms of giving birth during a pandemic, being separated from birth partners, being cared for by midwives that were actually afraid of being near them, you know? Having birthplaces changed at the last minute and totally fearing going into a hospital because they'd been told that there was this deadly virus that was totally, potentially, going to kill them. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, like, why is hypnobirthing going to be how is it going to be useful in these circumstances? You know, I teach about how valuable support is during birth, and this is not what my clients are going to be experiencing. I talk about choice, and suddenly they're experiencing an extreme lack of choice. What is the point? And of course, I was also faced with like the lack of being able to physically in person deliver my courses. So I made an announcement on social media that I'd be hanging up my hat, you know, that I would be no longer offering services. And I remember feeling like this deep pain of, oh my gosh, like my whole passion for what I do, like there's just no place for it right now. So I made this announcement that I was no longer going to be offering services. And obviously on a personal level, that was massive. You know, this was, you know, my passion, my income, it was everything. And of course, you know, there I was grieving the loss of this thing. And then as the days passed, I had this, you know, huge wake-up call that yes, there were circumstances that were making it hugely challenging for my clients, hugely challenging. And there were areas of my course that perhaps needed to be a bit rejigged considering the circumstances. But my goodness, expectant parents needed my services now more than ever. They had so many challenges, so many bumps in the road to deal with. Does that mean that I should be taking away my services and leaving them with nothing? No, it actually meant that my services were more important than ever. Another time that I've experienced this real like, oh my gosh, what is the point doing what I do, was actually 4 years ago when my little sister had her first baby. And I'd, of course, taught her hypnobirthing, and she'd loved it, and she'd, you know, done all the things that I wanted her to do, done all the practice, and she was really prepared for a baby's birth, and she was choosing to have a home birth. Now, when she told me about her birthing experience, oh my gosh, it made me question everything that I did. She had a really challenging birth that involved a transfer from home to hospital, and it was very much a cascade of interventions. And it hit me hard, you know, it was my sister. And as much as she viewed her birth as positive, you know, and she talked about it in a positive way, still, there were so many things in her story I was cross about. Not because of her, my goodness, because of the system, because of the things she'd had thrown in her way that were not right, that shouldn't have happened, in my opinion. And I became cross with the system. And it again, like, reminded me of how flawed the system can be and how difficult midwives' roles are when they're dealing with such crappy policies, you know? And they're so time-strapped and under pressure and fearing litigation. And again, it made me feel like, what is the point doing what I'm doing? Now, I wanted to share those stories with you because I know that, you know, wherever you are in terms of your business, there may be times where you also feel like this. And you know that your passion is your motivation. It's the, you know, the huge thing that is ultimately your superpower. You know, it's your superpower in your business. And we're so lucky to work, you know, doing work that is our passion. And sometimes we feel like our fire has been blown out. Someone's peed on our bonfire, and then we're like, well, what am I left with? So that's why I wanted to talk about this today. I want you to know that if you ever have these feelings of what is the point doing what I'm doing when my clients, when the people that use my services are up against so much. They live in cultures where mothers are not valued, where choice is not seen as something that exists when it comes to maternity care. When women still are not seen as intelligent beings, No doubt you will have times where you question, what's the point in what I do? Does my work even matter? And I want you to hear this loud and clear. There will always, always be things outside of your control. And there will always be things that you cannot change. But I tell you what you can do. You can impact one person. You can impact two people. You might not be able to change systems and cultures, but you can make a difference for people, individuals. And I also want you to think about, is the fact that you are considering throwing in the towel, quitting, actually a sign of your perfectionism? Because I'll put my hand up and say, I definitely think that had a part to play in me feeling that way too. This feeling of, well, if I can't do it perfectly, what is the point of doing it? If my clients don't have a perfect system to work with, what is the point? There are always going to be things out of our control, and we can always make a difference. And actually, when we see evidence, we see the evidence of how blooming hard it is for the families that we work with. It is more fuel to what we do, more fuel to that fire. It actually reminds us that we are needed so much. If our clients are feeling overwhelmed, undervalued, not listened to, my goodness, they are absolutely going to need your wonderful community more than ever. During those times that you are questioning everything, take yourself away from it for a moment, Protect yourself by not going into overdrive in almost like convincing yourself that everything is broken, Protect yourself from that and remind yourself of the difference you do make. Yes, the experiences your clients have might not be perfect, but there'll always be a difference. You'll have always made a difference, and that matters. That difference ripples out to other people. And that's what we do with our wonderful work. And always remember that you are not alone. There are so many other heart-centered business women that run services like yours that get it, that get those feelings. So say them out loud, because I tell you what, that helps. Say them out loud, feel validated, and know that actually you are so needed now more than ever. And isn't that a good place to bring this podcast episode to an end and remind you to keep on changing lives? And perhaps your feelings of this are a little sign that you need a bit of a break, that you need a bit of time just for you, and you'll come back to your business so much stronger. As always, if you have enjoyed this episode, please do leave me 5 stars. Please do share with a friend and keep on changing lives. Take care and see you next time. Bye. Thank you for listening to Rockabye Revenue. I hope this episode has left you with some fresh ideas and bundles of motivation. If you enjoyed this episode, do make sure you click subscribe so you never miss an installment. And if you found this episode useful, I'd love you forever if you leave a 5-star review, helping this podcast reach the ears of more of the helpers in this world. And remember, keep changing lives. See you next time.